Hello boxing fans, this is a response video to Slideways 100's video on putting boxing into a system, and I think it's a really good video. I'll put the link in the description. Getting straight into the video now. All world sports are into systematic systems basically. They're easy to read, it's clear to see how they work. Boxing is the main exception to this. You know, if you just look at some of this at the local sports, it depends where you are. I'm going to start with America. If you're American and you like basketball, American football, hockey, they're all in leagues. They're all clear to follow. They've got cups. You know, they've got obviously trophies, leagues. Like I said, it's easy to tell who the best team is or the best people are. You see what I mean? And that, but with boxing, it's more hard to follow because it's more of your perception instead. And in the rest of the world, I mean, the biggest world sport obviously is real football or soccer if you're American, and it's in leagues. There's like World Cups, Champions League. You know, the best team is basically the winner of the World Cup. You know what I mean? Or that's that nationally anyway. Or if the best team in the world is the winner of the Champions League. Well, in boxing, you can't really say that. Like, the winner of the world title is not always the best in the division. You see, there's like 4 different people in the division, and a lot of times they don't fight each other. In the Champions League, or even in the league, just a normal league, the 4 people, the big 4, always play each other at least. So you see, other ones would be cricket, rugby. They're the same. They're really structured, got World Cups, etc. So I'm just going to get straight into it now, and I'm going to say how I would make boxing a more structured sport, right? And this will help get the best fights for the fans, and it will keep all the jokers out of the sport. You know, the people who are just taking piss. Right, so first I'll keep all the big 4 belts. I'll maybe add in the IBO as a world recognised title, as a lot of good champions have held it. But the main idea is not everyone can challenge for a world title. Only domestic champions can challenge for a belt. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to put everyone into leagues. Either be the British, the Commonwealth, the European, French, Spanish, Greek, Ivorian, Filipino, North American, Mexican, Argentinian, Brazilian, etc. You know, every country has their own domestic title. Now all these guys can obviously challenge for all of them, okay? They then can go and challenge for these other interim titles, such as the British, the Commonwealth, etc. You see what I mean? All these different titles, right? If you hold one of those, you can challenge for a world title. That's the main idea. If you do not hold one of these domestic belts, it shows that either you're weight hopping and you're just jumping into a weight, getting a world title shot, beating the world champion, but you're not proving that you're any type of force in that division. You see, you've not had to come through any type of league like everyone else has had to throughout their career. For example, Kell Brook has been fighting people. He's still yet to get a world title shot. Manny Pacquiao just jumps straight into the division, gets a world title shot. If you don't like me using Manny Pacquiao as an example, Floyd Mayweather retires, comes back, fights for a world title. You see what I mean? He didn't have to prove himself. None of these guys really have to prove that they still got it before they fight for a world title anymore. Now how I'll do it now is all world champions will be contracted to defend their title against the champion from a different continent 3 times a year. So that means they'll end up fighting someone from America, Europe, Asia, Africa, or Oceania. You see, there's 5, and they can pick 3. You see what I mean? And there'll be 5 belts, 4 to 5 belts. So everyone's going to get a shot. Basically, every champion will have a good chance of getting a shot. So like I said, yeah, 3 times a year with an extra fight against another world champion scheduled for the end of the year. So that'd be like your Champions League thing. And the 2 winners of the 2 playoffs, you say, the 2 unifications, will have an option. They don't have to take it straight away. Will have an option to fight each other to unify all the belts. Well, that's unforced. If they hold the same belt at the end of the next year, they will be forced to fight each other. If they fail to fight each other for any reason, they must vacate their title and concede their world ranking and start from scratch at the bottom. So also I want to promote fairness and, you know, to increase the sport of boxing, right? So every world champion, to promote fairness and to grow the sport, will be forced to fight 1 fight at home, 1 fight away, right? So, and before anyone says, oh, I don't know if that would work, every other sport follows that system in the world. So, you know, they're hardly being hard done by. So, you know, that means like Mayweather wouldn't be able to fight every fight in his career in Las Vegas. It doesn't matter if the money's there. He might have to go to the UK, fight in a football stadium, 40,000 people. I'm sure he's not so moaning about that now. You know, Other examples: Lucien Boutte fights all the time in Canada. Maybe he has to go to America for his next fight. Who knows? Or the one Andre Ward fought all of his fights in Oakland. You know, everyone says he would have been such a better. His world ranking probably would have been pound for pound #1 if he fought all of his fights away. Imagine if he fought one at home, one away, one at home, one away. You know, he would at least be in the top 2, top 3 or 4 pound for pound at the end of the year if he keeps winning. And there's no suggestion that he won't. Right? And I'm going to move on to how this would affect the domestic fighters. Okay? Basically, domestic fighters that are not holding a belt, they must fight a minimum of 3 times a year. There is no maximum of how many times you want to fight. If you want to fight twice a month, fight twice a month. If you want to fight once a month, fight once a month. If you want to fight 3 times a year, fight 3 times a year. Do what you want. Fight whoever you want, unless you're holding the title. If you're a domestic title holder, you must defend your title against domestic opposition 3 times a year to get 1, experience, 2, find out who is the best in the domestic league, you might say, yeah, and this will help prove that you can hang with the bigger boys. Okay, they also have an option of 2 more international fights against other belt holders, and that could be to unify or just for an exhibition. So like the Filipino champion might want to fight the Mexican champion because they've had a war of words on Twitter or something, and that way this still works. And obviously all these fights also work on the one at home, one away system. And if you just take that on thing you notice, just domestically, right, you're already getting better fights to the fans. You know, look at the American heavyweight division right now. I'm going to use America as my prime example right now because some of their fights are a bit shit. Look at the heavyweight division. Imagine if you had Forced Kevin Johnson versus Seth Mitchell. I don't think anyone would lose in that fight. In terms of like, the sport would grow, everyone's happy, they see a good fight. Instead of Seth Mitchell versus Button, Seth Mitchell versus European guy well past it, or you know Kevin Johnson versus Bum, Kevin Johnson versus European guy well past it. You see, you're getting the best fights out of it. You're not just getting, you know, they're not fighting journeymen and bums anymore. They're having to fight to prove that they're domestically the best, and I think that's the best way forward. So I'm going to move on now to how it would work domestic versus world champion. So if you're a domestic champion and you're challenging for the world title, you must vacate your title, and this is domestic champion. He must vacate his title, win or lose, so that other people have a chance of fighting for the world title. And obviously if he wins, he's the champion. If he loses, he must start from scratch. And this way it will stop guys getting shots all the time. So you know, I mean, I'll use an example from America, yeah. Paulie Malignaggi, I can count off just off the top of my head. He's had 4 or 5 world title shots in the past few years, you know, and I don't think he's proved all of them, you know. And how many has he lost? Most of them, you see. So if it maybe, you see, that's the point. Different guys. Imagine if Malignaggi only had 1 shot and they moved it on to someone else. Everyone's happy that way. In case of a robbery anyway, or controversy, both fighters are forced into a rematch in the opposition's home territory, right? The world title holder will then lose his playoff place. That's where he would face one of the world champions for a unification at the end of the year. Now, one, that is to, it's like a sanction, really, a economic sanction on him. And 2, it's more of a thing like, it's to prove you don't want robberies. It's bad for the sport, and like people have been hurt in that, and that shows that is a good way of, like, you know, stopping it. Yeah, so then he fights him in the domestic champion's place. The domestic champion obviously relinquishes his title, but is awarded the right to fight for the world title on special circumstances. If then, let's say, the world champion refuses the rematch due to injury or cowardice, an example will be Robert Helenius, and I think they go hand in hand, really, you know, injury and cowardice. Let's say Robert Helenius versus Chisora. Oh, I'm injured, can't fight. You see what I mean? Then that man is stripped of his title, no matter what title it is, right? And he's given it's given to the opposition at short notice, or if, like, let's say there's a few months building up to it, yeah, there'll be a #1 contender versus that domestic champion. You see what I mean? And if, let's say, that world champion returns from injury like a few months later, his next bout must be against that guy, right? in his hometown or wherever he wants to fight. Otherwise, we'll have more sanctions. In other words, you won't be able to fight for a world title until you fight him. And I think that's a good way of doing it. And I'm just saying, like, a few key things to pick up on is champion versus champion. You can hold it for a year. You don't have to fight each other for a year. I think that's a good thing. But then the next year you must fight, or you must both vacate your title and relinquish your pound for pound spot. Let's say, so that I think that's good. But that way, we'd have seen Manny Pacquiao versus Floyd Mayweather 2 years ago. You see what I mean? Otherwise, Floyd would be probably retired because he wouldn't want to have to fight 3 times a year from the bottom, and Pacquiao probably would be retired as well. You know what I mean? Other things to pick up on is 3 fights a year stops. Floyd Mayweather is like a huge one for this one. Sorry if I keep using Floyd Mayweather, but if he does it, he does it. He only fights one time a year. That's bullshit. I would like to see him fight 3 times a year. I'm sure everyone else would like to see him fight 3 times a year. There's guys out there fight 3 times a year. If he was in this system, he would have lost his world ranking a long time ago. Anything else I can pick up on? No, we'll keep it like that. So anyway, I want to say thanks for listening. Tell me what you like, what you think of this system. Tell me how you can improve this system if you want. Post a response to this video. Post a comment. YouTube are doing some bullshit thing where you can't always write back to the comments anymore. So I'll always write back to the comments somehow. I'll do it somehow. But what else was I gonna say? Yeah, also check out Sladways 100 video. It's in the description. So yeah, check it out. Tell me what you think.